So you get back in the gym, you're starting to see progress, and then what happens, just like every time before? You get injured. And what happens when you get injured? You can't train. And then what happens when you can't train? You get depressed. No, right? You can't train, you can't improve, you can't grow, and you start to regress. And then the mental aspect comes into play too, and it starts to beat you down. Why do I bring this up? Because it happens all too often. I'm going to talk to you about how you get injured and, more importantly, how to prevent it from happening. If I can explain to you how most injuries happen, then we can talk about how to prevent them. Most, if not a vast majority of injuries, especially in the gym, do not happen from something traumatic, right? Like even a torn pec, I would not say it's traumatic. I'll go into why. A traumatic injury would be like you got hit by a car or the weight stack fell on your foot or something like that, right? That has nothing to do with your mechanics and nothing to do with load management, nothing like that, okay? Those are going to be set to the side, right? Because yes, we can control it, right? We can live in a bubble, but that's not going to be the focus. The injuries I'm trying to talk about here are the elbow tendonitis, the knee tendonitis, the pec tear, the torn bicep, right? These things happen, as you probably assume, more than likely because of poor form. But if it was just because of poor form, then why do people with good form still have issues? Now, I'm going to say that they have less issues, and the reason why is this. Breaking down some anatomy very simply for you real quick. Bones on their own cannot move, right? What happens is you have a bone and a bone attached to the joint, connects the two, and allows them to move. Allows them to move, doesn't move them. What you have are muscles on each bone, which are attached by tendon to the bone, that could shorten, right? Shorten and lengthen to move those bones. And ligaments are what are going to attach those bones, okay? Ligaments are a little bit independent of weight training for the most part. Like if you're injuring a ligament while training, it's probably because you like moved incorrectly, okay? Most of your injuries are going to come from a tendon or a muscle, okay? The reason why the tendons get injured the most, it's going to be mostly because they have poor blood flow, oxygen flow, and nutrient flow. And they heal a lot slower, right? They're very durable, but they get damaged from overuse and improper tracking of the muscle and the bone. Think about it this way, okay? Let's look at a joint like this. If you can see this, there's a space between my two fingers. The tendon is gonna lie within here. We're really talking about the patella, right? The knee. If I do things incorrectly, my muscles are too tight, or I do form incorrectly, and now instead of going like this, it's more here, right? That's not natural. That's going to affect the tendon in a poor way. Over time, it's gonna get worse, and then the tendon is gonna be compromised and get injured. Most injuries don't happen just snap because something's wrong. There we go. Those injuries happen due to extremely heavy load and the muscle and tendon not being able to handle that, or gets put in a range of motion that it's not used to. So I'll get to that too in a second, those pop tears. I want to talk about the tendon piece first, the overuse, because that's probably where most of your injuries stem from. And you get a tear and you think it's from one day. No, it's over time and over time. So those tendons are made from different proteins than muscle fibers, and they recover in a very different way. So now that we know what the tendons do and how overuse in a poor movement pattern can affect them, that's why form is so important. Because let's say you do a set of 10 reps, you do 3 of those sets, that's 30 reps. You do it once or twice a week, every week for a year. That's a lot of repetitions doing things wrong, right? So not only is form important to work the muscles that you need to work, it's also important to keep you safe, all right? In addition, if you're doing very jerky movements, quick eccentric and concentric, that puts the tendon again in a very compromised position, especially when there's a load involved, right? Am I going to get injured doing this? Possibly, right? Am I going to get injured if I have a 50-pound dumbbell and I'm going like this, even though I have muscle? Yeah, probably, right? So it's that shock factor, right? Which is very important to how we train. So we talked about the tendon piece. Let's go into those pop tears and things like that, okay? The most common we see is either with a shoulder press, an incline press, or a bench press. We see pec tears, right? Or bicep tendon tears. Why? Because you're not training in a full range of motion, placing the joints and muscles and body in a position where it's strongest and able to handle that range of motion. And you're probably executing it with a load that your body's not used to, especially in that range of motion. So the first two are pretty simple. The last one I'm going to explain the most important. If I were to take a bench press to 90 degrees and stop here, okay? At that point, that's where I'm strong, right? And that's just, I'm not saying that's the correct movement, but let's say you do that you just go to here. This is your bench press, right? This is where you do it, and you get stronger and stronger and stronger and stronger, and the muscles are building, right? What happens when you decide to max out to show off to your buddies, right? And you get pushed past 90 degrees at this max weight? You're gonna tear something. Because not only are you not used to that range of motion, your muscle's not used to that much of a load at that range of motion. I hope this audio's been good because the mic was upside down. So, with that being said, that's how most tears happen. In addition, not putting the muscle in the correct place, placing it on the tendon. That's why these flared out bench presses are why you see a tear. Do you see many people tearing their bicep or their labrum or their pec, keeping those elbows tucked and shoulder blades back and depressed? No, because the tension is placed mostly on the muscle. Now, do those tears still happen even in perfect form? Absolutely, right? But this is all about mitigating it, okay? So when it comes to injuries, how they happen, right? We talked about tendon overuse. We talked about range of motion. The last thing that we could talk about is load, okay? So when we talk about load, again, your muscles will recover and grow faster than the tendons, especially individuals on anabolic steroids. They're going to grow and recover faster, muscular-wise, not nervous system-wise, than most. And what's going to happen is, especially if you hop on like certain orals that are very anabolic or androgenic, and your strength goes through the roof, you're going to progress through the strength and the muscle aspect faster than your tendons and ligaments and bones can, and that's where injuries come about, okay? Very simply put. There are other pathways and methods to get injured, right? But like, for instance, not training a certain range of motion, like just training like a bodybuilder and then doing something out of bounds. Like, for instance, if I just go up and down, squats, lunges, leg press, right? And then I decide to do a side lunge or some sort of lateral movement in basketball, I'm probably going to tear my crap because I'm not used to it. So we talked about the general pieces. So how do we prevent injury? Hydration is going to be key, okay? Hydration is going to create cushion, help with the synovial fluid within the joints and within the muscles, okay? It's going to flush out toxins. Number one is going to be, or number two, should be number one, but this just came to my brain second, is going to be correct form and execution. Absolutely, bar none. Third, activating the muscles that are supposed to be trained in that movement and keeping it there. So as you start to, let's say, get to failure and you start struggling, you're just doing whatever you can to get it up, you're going to get injured there, not from rep 1 or rep 2 where the muscle's not fatigued and you're keeping it on the target muscle, right? So like if I'm doing a bench press, right, keeping good form, and then I start to struggle to shrug it up to get it up, that's where I'm going to get injured. It's just fact, okay? So hydration, correct form, nutrition. Obviously, you need protein, not just to build muscle, but it's going to rebuild tendons, ligaments, literally everything, okay? Rest and recovery, especially when it comes to tendons and ligaments, you're going to need more time. So just because you're not sore doesn't necessarily mean your tendons are good to go, okay? Perfect example with my quad tendon tear. Depending on the day and how hard I train and how disciplined I am, sometimes my tendon heals up just as fast as the muscle. Sometimes I'm not sore anymore with the muscle, but my tendon is still inflamed and I can feel it, right? Not really ever is a tendon going to be better than the muscle unless I were to do like 0 pounds and just like keep moving over and over, but that's not really what training, okay? As far as preventing injury, I'm trying to think of anything. We talked about recovery, we talked about sleep. Let's just start with those. I have no problem making another video if more come into mind. But again, the more you get injured, the less time you're training, the less time you're progressing, right? And that's really what's going to build your longevity and progress. If you enjoy this information, make sure to hit that subscribe button. Comment down below with any comments or questions. If you want more information on what it would take to work with me one-on-one, simply fill out the questionnaire in my channel bio, Or if I sent this to you directly, just message me back that you have some interest, and I will happily show you the exact steps for free.